Welcome, friends, to another Wolff Responds. I might call this one the hoax of the tariff. And let me explain why. One of the most important justifications offered by the Trump government for the heaving of tariffs on everyone and everything that is flowing out of the White House. One of the key justifications is that it will bring jobs back to the United States. And here's the simple idea, and really underline the word simple. The idea is if you have to pay a tax for everything brought in from abroad, so that the cost to the American consumer is not only the cost of getting the object from wherever it's produced, but then on top of that, the importer, an American company, has to pay Uncle Sam a tax, and that's what a tariff is. Then the idea is to avoid having that tariff added to the price of things, companies abroad, both American owned and foreign, to escape these tariffs, will move production into the United States, because then they can produce the object and sell it, and there is no tariff because it isn't coming in from outside. So this genius idea, underline the word genius, holds that we should support Mr. Trump in his tariff politics because it will mean U.S. jobs. Now, this is economic nonsense. Let me explain why. There are many reasons, but let's start with the most obvious ones. Imagine you're the owner-operator of a corporation. You started here years ago in the United States, and then over the last 30 years, you decided you could become more profitable if you moved out of the United States, say to China, or if you like, to Mexico or Canada or many other possible venues. And why? Because the wages were lower there and other costs were lower, so you could make a big profit if you moved. So you did. You undertook the enormous expense of closing your factory in Cincinnati and opening or building one in Shanghai. Very big expense, very big disruption of your business for a year or two if you're lucky. Now, here's the second problem that makes this simple-minded idea nonsense. It's very risky to move your business from one part of the planet to another. Not just costly, risky. What do I mean? Well, here we go. It might be that a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, but sometime in the near future, some political operator, perhaps Mr. Trump himself, will undo what he did. In other words, he'll take off the tariff. He'll reduce the tariff. And then where will you be, Mr. Capitalist? You will have spent a ton of money moving back here only to discover that you didn't need to, that the tariff that motivated you is not here anymore. Wow. That would make you a loser in the capitalist race. You would have undertaken all the costs of moving, and the advantage you got would have disappeared when one or another shift of the political wind rendered the tariff a matter of old history. But I'm not anywhere near done. Here's the next problem. You might have thought that the market you had in China when you moved there would still be there if you left China and came back to the United States, which is what the tariff is supposed to do. But don't be stupid. You think the Chinese are just going to sit there and watch this process happen? Not at all. The Chinese are going to be tempted to do what we have seen them already do, which is retaliate with tariffs of their own. So, yes, you could come to the United States and you wouldn't have to pay a tariff if you moved here, but you couldn't export from the United States to China because they shut you out as a punishment and as a way to prevent others from doing what you did. You're going to lose a part of your business by making this move, and that might nullify whatever profit you gain from selling more since there's no tariff if you move back to the United States. But wait, this is even worse. China is part of an alliance called the BRICS that includes now about 22 countries whose total population is about 60% of the world's population. The United States' people is 4.5% of the world's population. Suppose China successfully argues to its BRICS partners to put tariffs against the United States in retaliation for the United States having put tariffs on them. That would mean for many, many companies coming over here to do what the Trump administration says a tariff will do, coming into the United States will cost a business much of the rest of the world as a market they can neither keep nor ever acquire because of retaliatory tariffs. You know, not thinking this problem through, applying tariffs with simple-minded notions, which, if you look at them like I've just done, fall apart, is to make a mistake we should have already learned from since we've already done it. Let me conclude by telling you what that lesson is that our great leaders haven't learned. In the year 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. You know all about it. The United States understood that they could not stop the Russians by brandishing nuclear weapons because the Russians have them too. And having a nuclear war is such a crazy response to a little issue like Ukraine that neither side's going to do that. Well, then what did the United States have as a weapon? Two things. They would supply the Ukrainian army with tons of money and tons of weapons, which we've done. And the result is that the Ukrainian army is a disaster, and the Russians have won about a quarter of the land mass of Ukraine and are in the process of winning that war, as everyone in the world who follows this knows. But here's the weird thing. The United States decided it could wage economic warfare, and in the form of sanctions. Europe would no longer buy Russian oil and gas, it was thought, in one of those simple-minded logics. And we would take the money that the Russians keep in banks in the West, and we would not let them use American international payment systems. We would punish them, and they would come to their knees. I'm quoting President Biden. The ruble would collapse. Yeah, the same simple-minded ideas that go, we'll put a tariff and everybody will come home and provide jobs here. Not going to happen. Here's what happened in the Ukraine. The Russians said, oh, you Europeans aren't going to buy our oil and gas? Well, we're part of the BRICS, and we're going to turn to our BRICS partners, above all India and China, and we'll say to them, will you buy our oil and gas? They said yes, thereby the great plan failed. And that's why Russia is winning the war. They said we won't have an international payment system, we in Russia, because Americans are closing us out. They turn to their BRICS partners, and they're in the process of developing and have gone quite far in developing their own alternative global payment system, which is a long-term, much more serious threat to American dominance than anything else. In short, the American strategy of economic warfare failed. It didn't achieve its objectives. It actually made things worse. Why am I telling you? Because that's exactly what's in store by throwing tariffs around in the manner of Mr. Trump. He's telling us all kinds of stories, acting the big tough bully, imposing tariffs, promising us it'll mean jobs and economic well-being. Well, that is not what's in the cards. It's not what's happening. And that's why I'm explaining this, so we don't all get fooled. Now, it may take a month, a half a year for all of this to become obvious. By that time, Mr. Trump and his people will have come up with someone else to blame. But they have only themselves for believing in a simple-minded way that the kind of slogans and boasting that got him into the presidency will be adequate to keep him there. I doubt it. If videos like this strike you as useful, helpful in understanding what's unfolding around us, then please share this with your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers. That's why we produce them. And of course, if you can help us defray the costs of this kind of production, please consider doing that as well. Simply go to our website, democracyatwork.info, and you'll see how to do it. Thank you.